I watched your the Condit and the double left hooks, the mirrored left hooks as I call them today, and I was showing it one of the guys here because I remember that fight so well, and like I said, I loved the first round of that fight, and I saw that same movement over the weekend because Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo also exchanged left hooks there. You could actually see a mark on Conor's face at the press conference where he got hit. One dropped the guy, one didn't. Matter of fact, Conor was still awake enough to throw some pretty good hammer fists very quickly. What do you make of the Conor McGregor phenomenon? I know you tweeted right before the fight, your heart says Aldo and your head said McGregor, which says so much about you as an analyst, really. You've obviously been in the UK. You've seen him coming up through the Cage Warriors. Last time you were here with Patrick Vickers, he's been talking about Conor McGregor for 3-4 years. Like you said, John Gooden was calling his earlier fights. If you're in Europe, it's not a surprise. If you're in America, he's quite surprising. What do you make of the McGregor phenomenon, the recent fights, everything?
I love it. I love it. It's interesting for me because I find it as fascinating as I do challenging. Because a part of me is like, God, I want to be in there doing what he's doing. He's got the talk, he's got the skills, and I kind of feel like there was a point in my career where I was on my way to being where he was. I didn't have the out of control confidence that he's got. I was always like we were saying, I was always quite honest with myself. But at the same time, I love the brash, the trash talking, the breaking fighters before the fights even started, and he's drawn so much attention to a weight class that had before been quite stagnant. As much as I love champions to defend their belt and to reign and be fantastic, and as much as I wanted Aldo to win on Saturday night for no other reason other than I just didn't want him to lose because he's Jose Aldo. I think Conor's absolutely fantastic for the sport. I mean, he has the potential to take us into an area that we've not experienced before. I think he has. I think Ronda did the first big push, and I think McGregor's the next one.
And so you kind of love it and hate it. There's something also very American about it too, and over the top completely, right?
Yeah.
And unmartial artist, but at the same time, Conor can be a very grounded martial artist as well.
I think he is. I think he is a very grounded martial artist, and I think there was a point in his career where, and I think it was kind of around the world tour, it kind of got away from him a little bit, and it's almost like in the build-up for this last fight against Aldo, he was far calmer and much more at peace with the whole situation. I mean, obviously, the work he's been doing with Ido Portal as well. I'm a big fan of Portal's work, his movement patterns and stuff, and I feel like mixed martial arts has been moving in that direction for some time, and I think McGregor has the recognition and he has the respect to kind of change the way that people prepare for fights. I mean, the quote by John Kavanagh, we're upgrading the software without damaging the hardware, is one of the smartest things that's probably ever been said about the sport of mixed martial arts, because so many times people are getting in there beaten up. Like I used to do training camp and then the fight happened to be on the end of it. I was never in training camp preparing for a fight, and I can look back and review all of my training camps in the same way. I pushed too hard. I was always overtrained. There was always something that wasn't moving well, that was sticking, that was painful, that was injured. And when you watch McGregor in there now, just the way he moves, you can see how, like he said, how free his movement is. That's a beautiful thing, and I think that the phase in which I was competing mixed martial arts, we'd lost touch with that. And the direction that mixed martial arts is going now is much more where I would want to be a part of it. And that's a lot of it is down to McGregor and bringing awareness to these different alternative approaches to training. And Gunnar Nelson as well. We can't discredit him as well.
Yeah, I think you were kind of in Vegas at the time where that super hard rounds of sparring, kind of the old AKA type sparrings on Tuesdays and Fridays, and you go in there and get beat was kind of the thing. And I think people were just starting to move away from that and think, wait a second. And then Conor obviously has fully embraced that and almost flipped it over 180 degrees. And he even said in the press conference, he's like, I didn't wake up that day with my foot hurting. I didn't wake up this. And I had Ido Portal in here about 4 months ago, and then we did another interview after he had actually trained with Conor in Dublin. And he emailed me when they were in LA about a week ago, and he's like, Brian, we're here on the beach. He's like, everything is cool. Everything is great. We are relaxed. We're having fun. And I was just thinking, what a great mental state to be in, as a great contrast to what we saw Rousey in, where, you know, there's so much pressure, but they're in this just gelled state. They're out having fun, moving, being free. And then, like, and I love Aldo, and I love him as a champion. I remember in the EC days, and I remember him chopping Uriah Faber's leg down to where Master Tong was lifting Uriah up from the center of the ring and putting him on the you know, a stool because he couldn't move. But you have to know that kind of meme of the Thai boxer, the you know, low kick, you do see that over and over in him. And with Conor, you see this whole openness to a new kind of motion.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, it's incredible to kind of to see that. And when Ito also came back here and we did this moving conversation, which we're going to publish in a couple of weeks, but he said, Brian, there's two Conors. There's the showman and there's the martial artist that hangs out in the gym and likes to have fun and jokes. And then there's the guy you see, you know, on the world tour with Jose, where he's just completely over the top. And that Go Big press conference, like, I was just flabbergasted, and I follow the sport and I was just like literally he went big.
Yeah.
And you've got every other belt holder on the stage that is just silent.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, when he was quiet the week before the fight with Aldo, that was completely congruent as well. And I was like, okay, here's a guy who's not going to put a show on for anyone else. And I was just thinking, and maybe you thought that way too, because you're thinking he's doing the right thing for him to win.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that his attitude during fight week, the one just gone, was exactly what he needed to do. We were at the point in his career where if he'd have been obnoxious and over the top towards Aldo again, I think a lot of people would have just been like, okay, enough of this, you know, because there is a point that you get to where you just kind of don't want to hear that anymore. And he did well. I mean, the Go Big press conference, like you said, it was fun to watch. You know, he was brash, he was outspoken. He called out 3 divisions worth of people, you know. But at the same time, it got a lot of people talking. It drew a lot of attention, and I like that. On the flip side, though, I didn't want it to continue on to the point where it would damage Conor as an individual brand, because it's not going to damage the UFC. People are going to still continue to tune into the UFC, even if they want to watch Conor lose. 80% of the fans that watched the fight could have wanted to watch Conor lose, but the money is still going in, the numbers are still going in. But the actual brand of Conor McGregor, had he have been that same person that was on the world tour, I think he would have done more damage to his brand than he did, than benefit this last week. I thought he was relaxed, he was personable, he was spending a lot of time with fans. You know, any video that you saw him in, he was laughing, he was making jokes. It was a lot more of a playful kind of, like the Conor that you would expect to see in the gym. And I think we were all ready to see some of that, and I think it was the right time.
What did you make of the fight and kind of the post-fight press conference, and then where do we go from here?
The fight was obviously disappointing. Not because McGregor won, not at all, but because we didn't get to see what Aldo is capable of. I felt the same when I fought Roy Markham and knocked him out just over a minute. It's like, well, it was great for me, you know. It was a quick knockout. Makes me look good, but he spent 8-10 weeks preparing for this, and I'd be really annoyed if I was in that situation. And I think McGregor said the same thing at the press conference. You know, I'm sure that they'll fight again, and having the fight end so quickly, I'm ready to see it again as well. Whereas if it had gone, even if it had gone around and Aldo had got beaten up and knocked out, I would be ready for him to retire. But I don't feel like I have any closure, you know.
Yeah, Conor actually, I think, even apologized to him. Like when they were reading it out, he was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't get the shot," which is, you know, a bit bold move for Conor. But yeah, I know what you mean. We didn't really get to see what was going to happen there. At the same time, it was, you know, it was a knockout, but we didn't get to see what happened.
Yeah,
it was kind of strange. You had also said before the fight that, you know, if Conor lost, it would have been a fascinating thing to see how he dealt with that loss, because you never know anything about a champion until they deal with the loss. Then you know everything. GSP, great point with Sarah.
Yeah,
you know, he came back and was better. Some people never do. Very curious to see what happened to Bones Jones, if it happens. McGregor, what do you think the next 3 or 4 years looks like for McGregor?
Well, I'm interested in the idea of him going up a weight class.
Cerrone's a big guy.
He is a big guy. But but McGregor's not undersized for the weight class. He has a long reach. He has a 74-inch reach, which, I mean, mine's 76, and I have quite long arms for welterweight. So he's quite a rangy guy, and I don't think stepping up to lightweight he's going to lose a great deal. I think the weight cut, although we've not seen him become quite drained by the weight cut, I think if he does get into a tough 3-round fight, 4 or 5 rounds with someone like Frankie Edgar at 45, I think we're going to start seeing him flagging a little bit. Whereas at 55, I don't think we'll see that as much. I think he can keep the same emphasis with his weight cut as he does with his whole training camp at 55. Whereas at 45, there's still an element of, okay, I've got to work now. I've got to push my body to a point where I don't want to. Whereas at 55, I don't think he would have to. So I think we would actually see a bigger growth in his game there. I also think there are people that can challenge him more at 55. I think his size alone stands him above a lot of people in the featherweight division. I don't know. I mean, I would be really disappointed if I didn't see him against Frankie Edgar. I think Edgar's deserved his title shot now for a while. I think, he had an impressive knockout over Chad Mendes. It makes sense for him to fight McGregor next, and I think, even when McGregor got the title shot in the first place, having bypassed Mendes and Edgar, it's like I wanted to see him fight one of those guys first. Now, fortunately, we've seen him fight Mendes. I don't think it was the best Mendes that we could have seen, and Mendes took him down twice in the first round. You see McGregor in the second round, and he didn't have as much spring in his step. He had slowed down a little bit. He was breathing heavy. He was bloodied. So then, does a full training camp Chad Mendes give him more problems than he did? Does Frankie Edgar give him more problems than he did? And if Conor's talking about moving up to lightweight, he stated at the press conference that he won't be vacating the featherweight belt. He's going to keep both active. So if that's the case, that going up and down weight classes is going to have a negative effect on him as well. This is maybe where his ego could get the better of him, is where he starts to think to himself, well, I can hold it down in this weight class, I can hold it down in the other. And the UFC aren't going to like that, I'm sure, because we need 2 belts that are active all the time. We don't have enough fighters to go around as it is right now. We need to create more events. We need to create more fighters, more main events, and having a lightweight title and a featherweight title both active by separate fighters is probably an extra 2 main events a year.
Conor ran that press conference after the show. I was just laughing out loud in my office watching it because I'd never seen anything like it before. And he thanked the UFC and he thanked the press like he worked there. We've never seen any fighter be that much vested or have that much input in the UFC. How does that play out? Like you said, he's saying he wants both belts. It doesn't make a practical sense for the UFC to agree to that, but Conor has a lot of power, probably more power than any other fighter ever has. And willing to use it. I don't think Ronda was willing to use it. Conor is.
Well, this is the other thing as well, is there going to get to a point where Conor's interests and the UFC interests are conflicting? And then is Conor a big enough star to step out of the UFC and do his own thing entirely? Which he may be, especially if someone like Floyd Mayweather comes and throws a box of money on the table. He's a very interesting element in the sport because he's quite unpredictable. And he's quite headstrong, and you can tell that by his negotiations with the UFC. We don't get to see what happens with his negotiations, but based on the money that he's making and the houses that he's living in, the cars that he's driving, he's negotiating hard with the UFC, and he's confident in his negotiations, which means that will cross over, and it makes sense. He's been confident in the fight game. Why would he not be confident in the meeting room?
Yeah, and he's putting it all on number of 24 each time. But I'd say all on black, but he's putting it all on one roulette wheel every time, and then he's winning every time. So he negotiates hard, delivers the goods, and he's done that 3 or 4 times in a row now. So I agree. For a 27-year-old, somebody asked me in the gym, how much would he make for that fight? And I'm like, well, a normal fighter in the UFC getting the title for the first time would make X. But Conor looks like he's making 10 or 20x. So, which is based on previous negotiations of previous cards and sellouts. So you know the deal. It's like the press kind of knows what's going on, even though you don't know what's going on. So.
But we are seeing other fighters taking a few more risks now. Look at Ben Henderson. I think it's really interesting now that he's a free agent, just kind of testing the market a bit.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to londonrealacademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media login and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Real, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at londonrealacademy.com. So click on the link below, you'll be directed there and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.